Okay, I'm going to go over the answers to this part of your quiz, the 2, 1, 2, 3 quiz. I want you, it's totally optional, but if you copy all these answers down, you fix all your mistakes, I will give you points towards your quiz. Okay, so a lot of little mistakes. So if you have any questions, please make sure that you understand your mistakes and then come and see me if you have any additional questions. So for this first problem, you were supposed to read the statement and then tell if it's a valid statement, either using the law of detachment or the law of syllogism. Now, in this case, this is clearly law of syllogism because the conclusion, okay, if you read this, if you live in Detroit, then you live in Michigan. And then I see the same thing as this conclusion is now the hypothesis of this second statement. If you live in Michigan, then it's cold in December. So whenever the conclusion and the hypothesis are the same, you wipe those out, and then you state the hypothesis and then the conclusion. So this is exactly what you want. If you live in Detroit, that's his first hypothesis. Then it is cold in December. So this is valid, and it is the law of syllogism. Okay, that's what you're looking for the law of syllogism. So then this next question, they're asking us to apply the law of syllogism to this question. And what you're looking for is that the conclusion and hypothesis, the conclusion of one statement and the hypothesis to the other statement has to be the same. And so here I see that this hypothesis, okay, x is less than 4, is the conclusion of the other statement. So this is the law of syllogism. So when you have something common, you wipe this part out. And then the hypothesis, some people switch this around then. It's the hypothesis stays the hypothesis. We're not going to end up doing the converse. Okay, so this part right here, if -2 is greater than -8, then, so that's what I'm looking for. If -2, I see it right here is C. If -2 is greater than -8, then absolute value of x minus 4 is greater than 1. That's what you need to be able to conclude. So a couple people, they put this first. They put the conclusion first, and you can't do that. That would be the converse. So again, if you mess that problem up, just learn from it. Okay. The next problem, again, we're just using law of logic. So right now we only know the law of detachment and law of syllogism. So for here, this problem, if you miss class the day before a holiday break, then you will not get bonus points. Okay, so there's only one statement here, and then this statement here then is basically restating the hypothesis. That's what we want for the law of detachment. Okay, so we're told that it is a holiday. So you missed before Thanksgiving. So it's still a holiday. So Thanksgiving is a type of holiday. It's still the same hypothesis. And then we have the same conclusion. The conclusions are the same. There's your law of detachment. Okay. That's all law of detachment means. So then number 4, I wanted to, even if this was a problem that we did in our notes, we did a problem with 3 consecutive, we did a problem with 5, and then we can even do a problem with 7 consecutive. Now, some of you didn't understand the word sum. Sum means you're adding, and consecutive integers are in a row, increasing by 1. So you have to be increasing by 1. So I wanted to see a couple examples. So if you see this problem in the future or a similar problem, I want to see some examples. You can't just do one example and then come up with a conjecture. So let's start with a 5. 5 plus 6 plus 7 plus 8 plus 9. Okay, so you would add 5 consecutive numbers together, and I'll quickly show this on my calculator, and then I'll show you a shortcut. What you're supposed to do is discover a shortcut. So that's 35. We're going to assume that you didn't remember this from our notes. Then you would try another example. Just do 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5. I know that's going to be a 15. Let's do 10 plus 11 plus 12 plus 13 plus 14, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 consecutive numbers. Now I'm going to apply my conjecture. If you take the middle number and multiply it by 5, you're going to get this sum. Okay, I know that's 60. If I take my calculator, it's going to add up to 60. So our conjecture, and you can even do more examples if you needed to, but if you take the middle number and multiply it by 5. That's our conjecture, and it's working. So like here, 3 times 5, it gives us the sum of 15. That's what I wanted you to remember. Some people, like I said, didn't understand what consecutive, okay? In a row, increasing by 1, okay? And it even works for negative numbers. So you could even do an example with negative numbers, and that this conjecture follows, okay? So that's the first page. That should not have taken long. Then I tried to give you a simple pattern. So figure 1 is a 1 by 1. I was hoping that you would see figure 2 is a 2 by 2. Okay, this is a 2 by 2. It has 4 blocks. So it's a 1 by 1, 1 block. This is a 3 by 3, and it has 9 blocks. So figure 4 would be a 4 by 4. So let's divide this into 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's a 4 by 4, and that's all I need to see. I just need to see figure 4. Now, some other people found that, hey, I'm adding like a row, like a row and stuff, like adding an L around it. I accepted that, but I was hoping you would see, especially for knowing the total number of blocks, it's the figure number squared, or figure number times itself. So that's what I wanted you to be able to see. So when you get to figure 10, I wanted you to know that it was 10 squared, which is 100. So my conjecture is figure number, whatever the figure number is, makes whatever that number is by that number of rows and columns. Okay, so that's what I wanted you to be able to see. And most people had to figure, not a lot. I guess majority of you did have 100, but that's what I wanted you to be able to see. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. And then this last part, okay, some people, you have to know what linear pair. So linear pair is two angles that are adjacent. Okay, they share a ray. Here I have a linear pair. This is an example of a linear pair. Together, they are 180 degrees. They have opposite rays. Okay. Supplementary, though, are any two. They don't have to be connected, but two angles that add up to 180. That's the difference. So here's my P and here's my Q. If two angles form a linear, so we're saying they are linear, then of course they have to be supplementary. That is true. Linear pairs are supplementary. That is true. But then I asked for the converse, and the converse, I had this on my board, is Q then P. So I have to change if they are supplementary. So basically, if two angles. So I'll write the if two angles. If two angles are supplementary, then they form a linear pair. Okay, that's all you're doing for the converse. You're just changing the hypothesis and conclusion, just swapping them. Okay, keep the if part, so you still have an if, and you still have a then part for the converse. It's just that this was the conclusion, this was the hypothesis. Now, if you have two supplementary angles, it doesn't have to be a linear pair. So this is a false statement because I can give you an angle with 100 degrees and off to the side, another angle that's 80. They're not adjacent. They're not going to be linear pairs. So this statement is false. Now, it can be true, but you just have to come up with one counter example. So here's my counter example. 100, and then there's 80 degrees. Together, they are supplementary, but they do not form a linear pair. I forgot to put the I there. So make sure you understand why that is false, okay? The inverse is you're going to negate the hypothesis, go back to the original hypothesis, you're going to negate it, and then you're going to negate the conclusion. Then we're going to read this and see if you think it's true or false. So I'm going to say, if two angles do not form a linear pair, then they are not supplementary. Okay, and I'm hoping you know right away that that's false. I can use my same example. Okay, so here's two angles that are definitely not linear, they're not connected, and they are supplementary. So that is a false statement. Okay, so make sure you understand why that has to be a false statement. And then finally, the contrapositive. Okay, the contrapositive says it's really the inverse of the converse. Okay, you're negating the converse. So you're going to take not Q and not P. So I'm going to go up to this. If two angles are not supplementary, then they do not form a linear pair. Okay, so now I'm hoping if you get easy to give two angles that are not supplementary, okay, so any two angles that do not add up to 180, and then I can tell you that they definitely will not be a linear pair because linear pairs have to add up. So this is a true statement. If you take any two that are not supplementary, we can conclude that they are not going to be linear. There's no counterexample to this. So this is a true statement. Okay. So what I need you to see is that you're willing to get all these correct answers and hopefully understand your mistakes. That's my goal. You show me that paper and I will add points to your quiz. Okay, so again, as we go through, you need to make sure you're doing the work that you're looking at. Go back to big idea assignments, go back over the practice, do the extra practice, ask for help if you're not understanding a certain concept. Again, it's a different way of thinking. It's our reasoning and our logic skills. So make sure you show me this and it should definitely help you. So thanks for watching. Take care.